right, go.
That's right.
Hi guys, okay, so today I've given you your data sheets for the recent district assessment. I want you to take the first couple of minutes to just look at the data. I've printed data sheets that have individual classes, subgroups, whether they're gifted, ESOL, and how they did on particular standards. So take the next 2 minutes to look at the data, and then we'll just talk about the ILA plan and next steps. I'll give you guys 1 more minute. Okay guys, what are you noticing about the data for 3rd grade math? What's sticking out to you standards wise? I know fractions was a huge component of the test. What are you guys noticing?
I saw a lot of the low percentages was for 16, 17, and 20, which are non-unit fractions on a number line. The number line was kind of hard for a lot of my kids. I don't know about you guys, but and then equivalence of fractions, they didn't really understand that. And then the last one was whole numbers as fractions.
Yes.
And that one was tricky. I don't think we got a lot of time on that.
About how much time did y'all spend on that? I feel like it was.
Overall for fractions,
Yeah.
it was a good
Just
amount.
fractions.
I was
Yeah.
pretty disappointed in their scores, to be honest with you.
Okay, tell me more.
I don't feel like they utilized what was on the DA. I feel like they spent a lot of their time on the DA while they were doing it,
Right.
creating the number lines on their own when they were given to them.
Yes.
They weren't
Yeah.
using the test booklet as a strategy.
Right. And they're always allowed to write in it, so that's just something to remind them, right?
And to hot read everything, but they were spending a lot of time recreating things that were already drawn for them perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
symmetrically, evenly out on a number line.
I had a kid use 7 sheets of paper.
Of scratch
Like,
paper?
that's just not.
But I think from that, maybe if they were given more opportunities like on classroom assessments to where we give them more, so they're kind of used to that, so they're already thinking, okay, right, to not create it on their own all the time. Because we do preach a lot, show your work, show your work, show your work, show your
But
work.
I don't
Draw it out, draw it out.
I don't see my class, they ask for it and I say, come on, just show your work on text.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see them, what's the word I'm saying? I don't see them recreating on our
On the classroom
grade,
assessments.
yeah, on our classroom assessments or our grade level assessments like they were on the DA.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think
kind
that's
of
kind
a,
of what we talked about with being DOK 3s on our grade level assessments, whereas
Yeah.
theirs were more 1s and 2s.
Right.
Where it was already given to them,
Mhm.
when we had been having them create them.
Yeah, I think they kind of have been over analyzing the DOK
That's what I was gonna
ones
say.
and
yeah.
twos because we
That's what we
preach
do.
so much
Yeah.
about the DOK 3 and like there's more content
most
to
of
the
it is.
DOK 3 instead of when it's just a 1 or 2 they're like, this is too easy, I gotta make it harder for myself. Yeah.
So let's reflect on flexible grouping. Or is there another standard that sticks out to you? I know fractions is a huge part of it. Is there another standard?
I noticed that 15 and 17, we were below, but we were really close to the district.
No, what's 15 and 17? Quadrilaterals. Did we spend a great deal of time on that? I feel like we did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We spent about a month on that and then about 2 months on fractions.
Right.
A full 2 solid months on fractions.
And I know 16 was one of our lowest standards, and I think one of the things we kind of saw with that question was there was a lot of reasoning questions, and that might have been difficult. You know, they were really good questions where they could identify something, how many parts are divided up and how many are shaded, but when they had to use reasoning, as 16 asked them to do, you know, representing the non-unit fractions, recognizing interval sizes, and maybe it was just some of that vocabulary too we need to work on a little bit more to help them with that reasoning part.
And what I want you to do now is to just kind of turn and talk with whoever's beside you, and just talk about your thoughts about the flexible grouping model that we do, because this is not something that every grade level does. In fact, we're the only one that does it, where the kids are moving and they're grouped by their ability. Talk to your partner, whoever you're by, about your thoughts on it. Should this continue? What did work and what didn't work? So take about a minute to talk about that, and we'll share out, because this is important for the ILA plan for next steps.
They're either putting 1, 2, or 3.
So there's always gonna be some sort of system that you would originally know that.
And then we had group 1 doing the math, and there was
Taking more of that time on it. But I mean,
Group 2 is like what happens when they're switching that way with the teaching questions, so.
yeah, I like
Like, I feel like that would work, and we just kind of, the really low kids was with the teacher. Yeah.
But it depends on the standard too, yeah.
Same students every single time.
Very beginning. I think the only group flexible grouping with
But we did that as much as what happens in the content, because everybody gets to do it, and these are supposed to be, but that logo was really working things like this. Yeah, so meeting with those people. And I feel like I like those times like that too. Yeah.
All right, guys, and one thing I forgot to tell you to do is to think about how the flexible grouping was helpful to your data. Does anybody want to talk about, before we jump to that, what worked and what didn't work with flexible grouping, because it's not perfect. So there are going to be things that just didn't work. For example, if I think about Castaneda and Gale, they just kind of got big changes at such crucial parts of the year, so that could be something that didn't work. So talk to me about some of the things you guys talked about.
I like doing the beginning of the year, going ahead right after the pre-test, go ahead and grouping them. That was excellent. I love that, working with the kids, and I saw a lot of growth. But then, like you said, once we kept testing them, switching out the groups, testing, switching, that's when we kind of lost it.
We said the same thing.
Switch after what, the mid-year?
Yeah.
Let that be it. You got them from the beginning.
Well, and this group over here, we're talking with our district changes,
Yeah.
you have to have your kids 65% of the year.
And that's why I'm kind of thinking that it probably won't be something that we'll do next year. We'll just probably make sure that the kids are well grouped.
In
So
there.
that you could do flexible grouping within your class, because like she said, for the bonus that you could possibly get, we don't want to be the reason why you don't get it, because I'm moving kids, I don't want to run from you, so, you know, yeah, we're not going to do a lot of movement. Anything else about what did work and what didn't work?
I liked it, the flexible grouping, where you could really focus on what your class needed, what your students needed, you know, and you would have students that are grouped together. I felt like the students kind of were able to kind of push each other based on the level they were at, you know. I had a higher level class this year, so I noticed that my students, we worked at a distinguished level a lot of times, and the kind of conversations we were able to have, the kind of number of talks that we were able to have, it was really beneficial to them, you know, and they're kind of getting grouped together, and they're able to better collaborate with each other that way, I noticed.
Right.
So,
The class discussions are really good
Yes.
when it's that way. I was thinking though, like a lot of the times I'll find myself, I'm doing a lot of whole group. Because
So
they're all
the same level. Absolutely.
So instead of me just breaking off and then, oh, I have a question, I'm trying to work with this group, I'm like, okay, let's just do it together.
Right.
But when that happens, we have a really good class discussion, everybody's engaged, everybody's at the same place, so it's not, you know, like a bad thing, but
Mhm.
it's like a better teaching opportunity, I guess, I don't know.
Going off of what Ralph said, we were kind of talking about not just as a grade level, but flexible grouping as a whole in your room.
Mhm.
Like really knowing the content and being able to know what possible misconceptions the kids have,
Right.
that plan ahead, then you can just pull those kids right away, right after the mini lesson.
Right. And as you
That's
guys
been helpful.
Sorry, as you guys know, the ILA plan is for flexible grouping. Did it help your data? Just kind of reflect on that. How did it help your data? In years before, if this is your first year teaching, I'm not sure how you would answer that, but if you've taught before but you've never done this before, how has it helped your data as you compare years before?
Well, we did this last year.
Mhm.
Did we start mid-year
January.
last year?
Yeah, so mid-year,
We
yeah.
started last year in January, and we saw significant amount of growth. Like,
Right.
it was just astronomical amount of growth with the kids. But as each year comes,
Mhm.
students have strengths and weaknesses, and, group grade level coming up. But I've still seen growth with my kids, even though they don't move to other classrooms. But with that being said, thinking about reading just because they're in a high math class doesn't mean they're in a high reading class either.
That's true. Anybody else that's done this before or hasn't done this in the past, can you compare years before? Do you feel like this is helpful to your data? Maybe Mr. Hatinga?
Yeah, this is my first year actually of doing flexible grouping, and what I found to be beneficial was that, I was able to group students based on the standards that we needed to practice and really target those standards. And I was able to see some gain in that, I was able to go ahead and just work on a particular standard, whereas trying to pull, 4 different groups with this standard, this group needs more practice with, that standard, that group needs more practice with, I was able to find more similarities, which was good for, the amount of time that we had with the students as well. So yeah, we could focus more on like whole group instruction sometimes, small group activities, so it was able to be way more targeted, I think, to what the majority of the class needs.
Okay. And as we're reflecting on the end of the ILA plan, talk to someone near you about what's the next instructional steps at this moment, because we still have the post-test and milestones coming up. So what's your next instructional steps? And we'll have a couple people share out.
That's what I think we were going to kind of figure out what was going on.
Like a SWOT review, because everything, and like some of my kids already know how to do that.
Fourth grade, things that they really expect.
Yeah.
The geometry
Just
reading,
reviewing.
you got it, that
You
getting
can let
it.
them go like
Feel for fourth grade.
And if I like do like that.
So,
we're gonna do 3 more.
really
Even if it's like that's it.
we need to get that fractional line.
Yeah, I might start doing that.
Still working well,
Because
multiplication, so.
when did you guys start it?
I think the kids here, guys.
Like early on in the year?
Yeah, I know.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, guys,
Yeah,
anybody
like,
want to
yeah.
share out?
Yeah,
Yes.
so, as I was talking, we're getting close to the end of the year, and we're looking at what the students really need, and coming from fourth grade, I said we're gonna put together a list of some must-haves.
Mm-hmm.
What are the skills they really need to be successful in fourth grade, and we're gonna drill down to those skills, and those are what we're gonna work on, They need to have a good foundation of multiplication division.
Yes.
That's an essential. They're gonna need to know fractions really well in fourth grade. Now, noted, geometry standard, maybe we're a little weaker on that one or so, but that's not as much of a must-have in fourth grade. If we can get back and review it, we would, but we're gonna really look at what those must-have areas are. So we'll make a list of the must-haves and then match that vertical alignment to their standards in third grade, and we'll know what we really need to work on at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Any other people?
We were talking about just like an overall spiral review,
Mm-hmm.
because some of my kids already forgot how to multiply and divide because we haven't touched that in a while. So I was thinking of doing maybe like a 1 minute, like a multiplication or a division page every day in the beginning of the lesson or at the end of the lesson, just to have them get their facts and their
Right.
reviews in.
Anything else before we close out? Okay, guys, so what's going to happen now is just we're going to continue to reflect on how the ILA plan is going, flexible grouping. We're really kind of unsure as whether we're going to do that next year because I really don't know how that would fit. But at least we know from this point that it was successful. We did have our little glitches that we had, but we're just going to move forward with next instructional steps.